Well, next here on the show, cilantro. It's a divisive herb. You either love it or hate it. But for one group of students, it's a crop they're growing to learn more about microplastics. Once it's grown, the Crocus Plains Regional Secondary School students in Brandon plan to put that cilantro under a very expensive piece of scientific equipment. It's called a Canadian Light Source Synchrotron. It's located at the University of Saskatchewan, and it is costly to use. It would cost an average company about $1 million for a day of use, and they're hoping it will tell us more about how microplastics in the Assiniboine River impact plant life in our province. Christopher Sarkonic is the physics teacher overseeing the project, and Poojan Acharya is a grade 12 student at Crocus Plains. Good afternoon to you both.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So
Great to be here.
Yeah, good to have you both here. So Poojan, I want to start with you. So just kind of tell us a little bit how this, about the cilantro you're growing and how the experiment you're doing works.
Yeah, for sure. So what we've done is we've taken three different main water samples. So we have our distilled water, which is supposed to be the perfect group. So it should have the best growth, and it's what we were going to be comparing results to. We have the tap water, which is more like a relatable one. We all drink mostly tap water. We grow plants maybe with tap water if we're doing grows at home. So that's going to be kind of the most interesting one for us, I think. And the Assiniboine is supposed to be the dirtiest one, the one with the most microplastics, the most heavy metals, and that's what we're assuming. And then when we find the results, we'll be comparing the three groups and see all the interesting things we could find.
And it's this fancy synchrotron that's going to tell you what the level of the microplastics and heavy metals are in the plant. Is that right?
Yes. So it'll be doing that. We'll also be using heavy metals as a way of finding microplastics. There's been research that shows that microplastics tend to absorb certain heavy metals, for example, like cadmium. So we'll be searching for those specifically, and maybe when there's higher concentrations of microplastics, we'll see a correlation again with higher concentrations of heavy metals.
So what's your working hypothesis here overall?
For sure. So yeah, our hypothesis is that the Assiniboine water will be the worst to grow with, as in the health of the plants will be the best, and it'll have the highest quantity of these microplastics, of these heavy metals, and that the distilled water is going to be pristine, completely clear, or near completely clear. Obviously, even in our own project, we've had problem with isolating things from plastic. Everything you do is with plastic.
Right.
So even trying to find sources of distilled water, things like that, have been difficult.
So Christopher, to you now, or Mr. Sarkonic, what could some of the implications be if your hypothesis proves correct, that the Assiniboine water used to water the cilantro is full of, microplastics, heavy metals, and makes its way into the plant?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we're looking at is kind of a question that that this whole project was born out of was, the students were seeing talk of microplastics in the news and things like that, and wondering, well, okay, like if we're getting research now that shows that most humans have some degree of microplastics in them that they've consumed and have accumulated and things like that, then okay, where is it coming from? How's it getting to us? So, could it be from water supply? And so if we investigate tap water and discover microplastics, then we might find, that might be a source that they're not getting filtered out. If we're finding that it's coming potentially from food supply, like in our case with the cilantro, if the cilantro is uptaking the microplastics, then I mean, if we think of, potentially farmers that are using, say, Assiniboine River water for irrigation purposes, they might be introducing microplastics into the food supply. And then we're also trying to see, well, what do those microplastics have an effect on? So does it affect the growth of the plants? Does it affect their overall health and things like that?
So it's one thing for a class experiment, grow a bunch of cilantro, water it with these things, then be like, take a little bite and be like, this tastes like microplastics. But you actually managed to you're going to Saskatchewan, you're going to go to this very fancy laboratory. I looked at pictures of it. It's like, it looks real deal, and you're going to put it under this very expensive beam that would cost $1 million to use for a day. It's called beam time in the science world, I hear. How did you score that kind of beam time?
It's a very interesting process. I started trying to get this sort of project up and running in our school a few years ago. I'd started teaching physics at the time, and I wanted to offer some really unique opportunities for our students. I had the privilege of going to an international teacher program at CERN, which is the world's largest synchrotron particle accelerator. And seeing the Large Hadron Collider there, and learning about what they do with it, and all the sort of stuff that they analyze, and how they learn about, the history and fate of the universe, and how they've even used it to cure cancers. And finding out that we have one here in Canada that isn't quite the same size, but it's used for a lot of really cool purposes, like trying to discover what things are made out of, and being able to do analysis of which elements are present in certain materials. I think a previous beamline group of students did an analysis of asphalt, looking at how the recipes for certain roads have gone by the wayside over the years. Well, what makes a road last, and what sort of components does it have? So they would analyze that. During COVID, they analyzed the COVID virus protein to try and figure out what the shape and structure of it was, in order to develop treatments for it, medicines that would fight it effectively. So learning about all this, and then I found out that they have a student outreach program called Students on the Beamline, where they take this amazing piece of equipment that's normally used for research purposes and things like that, and they offer time to high school student groups to be able to use it.
Poojan, how big of a deal is it for you to be part of a project like this?
It's honestly huge. I'm a really big project guy, so this is just like my bread and butter. Every day I walk into my physics class and I check, first thing I do, open the fume hood, because they're in a little fume hood, check up on the plants, check the humidity, see where the temperature's sitting, like see how they're looking today. And it's just an everyday thing.
What do you think it's going to be like when you get to walk into that like big fancy lab for the first time? Of you like, are you gonna kind of like get like a little starstruck?
I'm gonna get geeky about it. It's gonna be so cool. We get to do a really cool tour of the actual like instrumentation and stuff they use. Go through like labs and stuff, and like actually get to work in them. So it's just gonna be like so cool. I'm super excited for it.
Have you had any?
The students actually get to do the job of the scientists, and even put the samples into the beamline and everything else. It's truly a one-of-a-kind experience.
But up till then, there's a lot of riding on this cilantro staying alive. Have you had any like weird dreams about cilantro yet? Like, that's a little scary.
Yeah, we've been doing really good, honestly. We've had a couple scares, but we've really worked on problem solving and working together to get through those problems pretty well. Like over the winter break, we weren't able to come in. And after we came back, the plants were a little, they're kind of on the edge. They weren't completely dead or anything, but it was a little bit of a scare. But we went through it, fixed a couple issues. Like we had a humidity problem. It was really dry in here, so we bought a humidifier. So yeah, and just we've been working on things like that. And I'm hoping they won't die, not this batch, but we might get a chance to do a second batch. So that'll be cool.
And Poojan, when do you actually get to go to the lab and get these results?
We're planning on going in May. We were originally scheduled for February, but they were doing some upgrades and timelines got moved. But this is actually like a blessing in disguise for us, because it gives us more time to do different growth cycles. If we want to expand and do maybe some different type of sampling, we could do that as well. We have the time for it now.
Well, that's exciting. And before I let you go here, Poojan, I'm guessing I'm not the first person to ask you this here, but what do you want to do when you graduate? I'm guessing science?
Yeah, I plan on doing electrical engineering after high school.
Well, this sets you up pretty good in terms of resume, I'm guessing, hey?
Oh yeah, for sure it does.
Great. Well, congratulations to you both. I'm looking forward to hearing about the results. We'll have to have you on in May when you guys find out what happened to the cilantro. So excited to hear about that.
Awesome.
Okay, have yourselves a good rest of your day. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. You have a great day too.